Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast, presented by Queen Anne Beer Hall. Let us know if you've been going to the beer hall at all during the off season. Go watch a Mariners game, something like that. I mean, there's still lots of good sports going on. It's still a great place to go and watch all that good stuff. Another, I guess, thing we gotta promote here, RJ, and that is your live stream later today over on Patreon for all our Terror of the Deep tier patrons. It is the big Seattle Kraken off-season armchair GM stream.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've been looking forward to it really since even the playoffs started. It was kind of one of my consolation things for whatever the season did end, is that get to shift into off-season mode, play a little bit of GM, get in Ron Francis's shoes here and try and see where the Kraken are at right now and what potential moves they could make going into this offseason and how it all relates to their salary cap structure. Not a calorie cap, not on a diet here.
Yeah.
But looking forward to that tonight, 7:00 p.m. Patrons, please join me for that one. It's going to be a great time.
Yep, and even if you can't make it live, the VOD will be available through that same link and everything. So if you need to catch it a little bit later, you can hear everything that RJ's got to say and whatever nonsense I'm firing off in the comments to try to distract him. That's also worthwhile.
And not just you. Yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a patron, you can fire off nonsense in the comments. Make me try an Erik Karlsson trade and see how that fits. We'll do whatever you guys want to do. It's for you. So I can play around with whatever you guys want.
Way to bring that upon yourself, RJ. There.
I know. Okay, please don't make me do an Erik Karlsson trade.
Yeah.
But anything else?
Yep. The other big thing that I want to talk about at the start of this podcast, just so as many people as possible can hear it, and that is that next week is going to kind of be like when we do our reflection on the second season of the Seattle Kraken, and we're going to be going over our top 10 moments from this past season for the Seattle Kraken. And just like last off season when we did this, we want to hear from everybody else as well, what your favorite moment was from the Seattle Kraken season. So we're going to give out the phone number again where you can call and leave a message, and we'll play the messages in the in next week's podcast. I think we'll probably also put something out on social media so people you can just jot down your favorite moment or whatever. But I had such a fun time doing this last season, RJ, hearing everybody's stories, because look, everybody has a different thing that really stuck with them, a moment that was a little personal. But I think when we all get together and we all share those things, it just shows how impactful the Kraken can be, how much fun sports can be and impactful sports can be, and all that good stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, me too. And there's so many different versions of the season that we all saw. Look, it was kind of the same 82 games plus 14 playoff games, but there are thousands of different perspectives out there and what people remember and what sticks with them and how they all experienced that moment. And that's something that really stuck with me after last season when we did this. And so many more great moments this season to talk about as well. Much more successful season for the Kraken on the ice. I mean, I just can't wait to hear what everyone has to say.
Yep. So you've got the number, RJ. Let's go ahead and give that out, and we'll probably give it out again at the end of the podcast too.
All right. So share your favorite Kraken moments this season. Call us at 425-243-7053. One more time. That's 425-243-7053.
Awesome. And I got the screen up with it as well for everybody. And yeah, call us. Last year we got a decent amount of people, so probably limit it to just your favorite moment, because we'll also have the social media ones and everything. And then it's going to be a fun time. We had so much fun last year. Everybody had a fun time with it last year, so really looking forward to that. But now I guess we can move on to news, RJ, to some quick hits here with some fun news. And I think the place we got to start with is Coachella Valley Firebirds moving on to the AHL finals in their first ever season, RJ. They did away with the Milwaukee Admirals last night. I believe it was a 3-1 victory for them. I mean, this team's unstoppable. They just keep going.
It sure seems that way. And I mean, hey, we saw how unstoppable they could be in game 2 of that series where we were lucky enough to go out to Coachella Valley. We talked about it at length last podcast. So if you want to hear more about that and you didn't catch last week's episode, go check that out. We talk all about the Firebirds and what all the special things that they're doing out there in Coachella Valley. But they keep the run rolling here with a victory in 6 games over the Milwaukee Admirals. Good back and forth series. Like Milwaukee, they made it a series to their credit.
They did.
Coachella Valley came out, won the first 2 games, but Milwaukee took advantage at home, winning the next 2. But Coachella Valley responded, winning that one in Milwaukee, and then again at home for game 6. It was a sellout, looked like an awesome crowd there, and they are heading to the Calder Cup Finals in their first ever season. And I know how much we talked about the Firebirds last week, but it really bears saying again, this is one of the most incredible stories in all of hockey this year.
Yeah.
In all of sports, really. For a team in their first season who didn't even start at home. They had to be in Seattle, based in Seattle for the first couple months of the season, playing their games out of KCI, where I play my beer league games. You know, a couple at Climate Pledge Arena. Like, this team, they had to go through so much of just getting started and everything. We saw how big of a negative impact that had on the Kraken in their first season. Just the fact that everyone was kind of coming together and scrambling and everything. And look, everyone on the team talked about how difficult it made for them, for them to just win games and to be like a normal team. The Firebirds are just going right through it. I mean, it's been no problem for them being one of the top teams to the regular season and having this playoff run. It's just a remarkable story.
It's the magic of Disco Dan, RJ. I mean, I
can't argue with that.
That's all we can say, right? Him and the coaching staff and the incredible job that they've been doing. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, right? They got to start off the season up in Seattle, all that stuff, go on a really, really long road trip while things finish up before, I believe it was December 18th. That they finally got a home game in their home of Acrisure Arena out there in the desert. Yeah, it's just been remarkable what they've been able to do. It's, again, it's a shame that the AHL maybe doesn't always get a ton of coverage. Obviously, Stanley Cup Finals going on right now. The NHL world's kind of glued to that and everything. But it's been a remarkable story. I do think that, maybe later in the offseason we'll start seeing more national focus on that story and we'll start seeing some pieces from it. But I just think it's been incredible, and what a great job that this group of guys has been able to do. Also, like the leadership, not just from the coaching staff and the organization, everything, but also the leadership on the team and everybody coming through. You're talking also about the fact that like their number one goalie, Joey Decor, right? He's been having to go up in play with the Kraken at times and come back down and all over the place. They get Chris Drieger when his rehab was finally in a place where he could go down there and start playing games for them. Other call-ups up and down throughout the course of the season, right? And Ty Cartier and his growth and development there over the course of the season, then coming up to help the Kraken in the playoffs, just to come back down and help the Firebirds finish off what they're wanting to do here and try to win that Calder Cup. So it's been amazing. You look at the playoff, top 5 scorers so far for the playoffs in the AHL are all members of the Coachella Valley Firebirds. We don't need to mention the fact that it's partly because they've just played more games. But you look at like guys like Cole Lind, Max McCormick, right? Alexander True, Cameron Hughes. They've all been great leaders. Players like Riker Evans, who we hope to see with the Kraken next year, contributing as well and being a big deal. So it's been fantastic what they've been able to do. And so yes, they're going on to the AHL Finals, Calder Cup Finals here, going to be facing off against the Hershey Bears, Pennsylvania. So game 1 is going to be Thursday, June 8th. So in just a couple days here, they're going to get going. And the Firebirds are going to have home ice advantage. But reminder, home ice advantage in the AHL because of travel expenses and everything means games 1 and 2 will be in Coachella Valley, and then games 3, 4, and 5, if needed, will be in Hershey, before then games 6 and 7 would come back to Coachella Valley. And we saw this in the last series, RJ, against the Admirals. Coachella Valley able to jump out to that 2-0 series lead. Then you got to go, on the road. And the fact that there's 3 games there, that team can really build a lot of momentum having 3 games in a row there. So it's going to be interesting. Hershey's a good team. Obviously, they've made it here from the Eastern Conference, but I'm super excited about this one.
It's going to be a great series. And I like this was pointed out by Paul Buxton on Twitter yesterday, talking about how this is the newest versus the oldest team in the AHL. The
Interesting.
Firebirds, brand new this season, totally new to the market.
Yeah.
Whereas the Hershey Bears, I mean, they've played in Hershey uninterrupted or renamed or moved since 1938. They've also won the most Calder Cup. So, I mean, they're the oldest, most storied franchise in the AHL versus the brand new franchise. And I love that storyline for this series. It's going to be really fun.
Oh yeah, no, that's gonna be absolutely fantastic. Is Hershey still the Capitals AHL affiliate?
I believe so. They were last time
I'm looking at their
checked.
I'm looking at their roster right now, RJ. Oh my gosh, there's some fun names. If you've been a hockey or a draft fan for the last 10, 15 years or so, there's some incredible names on here, including their goaltender Zach Fucali and defenseman Dylan McElrath. Boy, these are some names that have taken me back to some drafts from years past right there. Oh, that's
for sure. Stuff. I'm looking at their roster now. Yeah, we've got Connor McMichael.
Yep.
Or from that 2015 draft.
Yeah.
Good prospect for the Caps and Hendrix Lapierre. Yeah, this is definitely
the Caps. Yeah. So there's some good stuff going on with their team too. They are a good team. But yeah, good luck to the Firebirds. I mean, the way they've been playing so far this year, it's not like they need it, but we'll give it to them anyway.
Exactly. Looking forward to that series.
Yep. All right. So now shifting gear to the Kraken and the news related to the Kraken. Obviously, a big part of last week's podcast, RJ, was guessing what the mystery press conference could be the following day. Oh my gosh. And we had lots of fun ideas. And then I think we kind of settled on what it ultimately ended up being, and that being the announcement of an extension for general manager Ron Francis. Obviously super well deserved, something I think we're universally everybody's on board with and happy about. So why don't you go ahead and give the details that we know about that, RJ?
Right. So yeah, we joked last week that, okay, we figured it out. That's what kind of makes the most sense as an extension for Ron Francis. Turns out that's what it was. No big surprises there. I know there was some speculation that maybe there would be some other kind of element to it, whether that be an extension for Hackstall or whether that be, maybe Francis being promoted to like president of hockey ops and Bottrill being named GM. Glad it wasn't that, but excuse me. But yes, Ron Francis given a 3-year contract extension. So that'll start next year. So he had 1 year left on his current deal. So that'll take him through 2026, 2027. So through that season, he is extended, got the GM locked up long-term. We were both talking last week saying we hoped that that's what it was.
Yep.
And turns out that's exactly what it is. It's a big move for the franchise. The GM, I mean, you look at how the Kraken operate too, especially he's big for the culture. Yep. Ron Francis, it really does operate from the top down. And yes, it starts with ownership, but Ron Francis in all hockey aspects, I mean, he's the decision maker. He's the guy. And so it's important to have someone like that locked up, especially when he's doing such a good job. Share some quotes here from the presser, starting with Todd Lewicki right off the bat, just saying, hopefully Ron finishes out his career here. So, I mean, obviously that's, that expresses the desire of the team to have him around, certainly long-term, and hopefully continues on this positive path. But yeah, a lot of confidence in him there. Let's see. One thing that stuck with me too was you got some kind of stories from Lewicki and from ownership talking about Ron Francis and everything he's brought to the team. And, you get a lot of the same kind of canned answers about, the culture and how important it all is. But I like this one from Todd Lewicki saying Ron was instrumental in our facilities, the locker rooms, Coachella Valley. There was a weekend where the drawings he got back weren't what he liked. He sat around the living room table that weekend and they redid it. Wow. I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. And it does show how involved, Ron Francis was and has been throughout this entire process. And, that's partly why, when we were speculating on what this could be last week, RJ, we were trying to figure out like what the contract was. Okay. Makes sense for like an expansion team, 5-year kind of deal. And that would include, there was a lot of time before the Kraken were the Kraken, back when it was just NHL's Seattle expansion team, where Ron Francis was around. He was hired, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. Like I think it's easy to forget how much needed to be done RJ, and it's easy
Yeah.
to just focus in on, well, he needed to, build out his staff, right? He needed to hire some assistant GMs, hire scouts, build out that network, build out the the coaching staff, build out all the personnel aspects of a front office and hockey ops and all that stuff. But why wouldn't you want this Hall of Famer to be involved in the decision making for what the players he's going to be trying to sign and bring in and draft and develop is going to be involved in? And someone who is smart, who's been around the sport for a very long time, who's kind of seen it all, it totally makes sense that he would be involved in all of those other aspects as well, building out what your practice facility is going to look like, what sort of training stuff they're going to have, all of that stuff. And so I think that it just shows, I mean, we know the Kraken do fantastic in all of those things, in all those ways. We hear it from the players, hear it from everybody involved. And I think it's really cool that now we get to kind of, more definitively pin some of that on Ron Francis in a good way, right? Like, I think that that's always good. And I think it just shows how instrumental he's been to all this, and how for, a very, very, very long time, anything having to do with the Seattle Kraken, you're going to be able to point to Ron Francis as the reason why it happened. And again, I mean that in a good way. I'm not saying like, oh, when things go down, it's his fault or anything. No, it's because everything has ended up so well. The fact that this franchise has started off, the success that they had season 2, but also just how happy all the players are to be here. The positive reputation league wide that this team has already developed. Like, I never thought we would see something like that, RJ. 2 years in, and you're hearing players from all over the NHL talk about it, and the stories they've heard from people there, and everything like that. And it's not just like, oh, the weather's good, right? No, it's like this organization is solid to take care of everybody, all that. It's all good stuff. And so I'm really happy to kind of hear that Ron Francis was involved in as much as he was, and that he's going to be staying around to continue to be involved.
Yep. And funny enough, the weather's good is the one thing you don't usually hear, to be honest, from the players.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Finland is usually the highest praise that the weather will get. Didn't know it would rain so much here.
Yeah.
Things like that are what you usually hear from the players. But I mean, I got to echo everything you just said about Ron Francis too. Like, when he arrived, a lot of this stuff wasn't even built yet.
Yeah.
The facilities, everything that always gets praised from the players. And for him to take that hands-on approach is just huge. And you know what? It helps him do his job. Yeah. He's the one at the end of the day who has to try and attract free agents to get players to re-sign extensions or whatever. And you know what? If they're happy with the facilities, if they're happy with the locker room, if they're happy with the weight room, if they're happy with all that stuff, they're more likely to stay and maybe more likely to take a little bit of a hometown discount too. Mm-hmm. So it does pay dividends for him in the long run as well. Yeah. Some more quotes here from the presser. There wasn't a whole lot in terms of, like news or quotes or insights. That one was kind of the biggest one that I saw. Some funny ones here. The biggest, Francis was asked what the biggest thing that surprised him about this job. And he said, COVID. Didn't see that one coming.
Touche. Very good. Very good.
Yep. Surprised us all. And Lewicki here joking around, in talking about meeting Francis for the first time, he said, my first move was to shake his hand. My second was to ask for his autograph.
That is good. That is good.
So that worked out. And then, I mean, he was asked about free agents, and the negotiations there, wouldn't tip his hat or anything. He just said, oh, well, we wanted to wait to save it till the end of the season. Now we get to work, things like that. So not a whole lot new from that presser, but yeah, 3-year deal for him. Actually, I guess one thing that did come from it, and this was, I think, from a radio hit later that Todd Lewicki did on Sports Radio KJR, but he did hint at something potentially interesting that I wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. He said, we're making a bid for a big tournament. I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
So Dylan, big tournament. Yeah. What could that be?
I mean, assuming it's hockey, right?
I would think so.
Gotta stick with that. I just saying. Big tournament. I mean, earlier in my mind, maybe it's just because I've been focused on this because it's been happening the most recently, was the Memorial Cup, and maybe like partnering with the Thunderbirds or something like that to try to get the Memorial Cup to Seattle. But then you had options that sound better and more realistic probably for a Climate Pledge Arena and all that.
So I was thinking the first thing would be the World Juniors, World
Yeah.
Junior Championship, of course, for like international hockey, under 20 World Juniors.
Yep.
And I believe the U.S. is supposed to host it in 2026. I did read that somewhere, so that might be the year that they're targeting to host the World Juniors, which I think would be amazing. That would be
Yes.
my chosen tournament. Like, the World Juniors is awesome. Love watching it every year, and to have it hosted in Seattle would just be awesome. We need to get you up here for that, 100%,
Yep.
Dylan. We would both be going to every game.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. Other options potentially, the Frozen Four, so the college hockey championship tournament there. And I was thinking that kind of sounded odd for Frozen Four to be in a market like Seattle, but then I realized, they've been having it in Tampa beforehand. So I always just kind of tend to think of it as a northeastern type of tournament that they would usually host there. But yeah, I suppose that'd be possible for Seattle. The other one would be the men's or women's world championships. Could be an option there. I mean, those happen. Although, the trouble with that is those tend to happen, while the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on, and you could have some scheduling conflicts there if the Kraken are in the playoffs. So I think that one might be less likely. But sign me up for the World Juniors personally.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that happens during the season. It would, if the World Juniors was to happen in Seattle, it would probably mean a little bit of an extended road trip for the Kraken, which, it's maybe not the greatest thing in the world, but the World Junior Championships is just, it's the best tournament in hockey. It just is. Like, there's nothing that even comes close to it. You are guaranteed to see the next generation of star players in the NHL. They all go through there. They all play in that tournament. I mean, just everybody. I remember growing up and watching that tournament. I still watch it every year as much as I possibly can. And just every player that we watch in the NHL now, all the top players, I remember watching them at the various tournaments and what they were able to do. I still think the biggest one where it was just this guy just absolutely dominated it, and it was this moment where I was like, okay, this guy's going to be a legit NHLer who's going to be the top of his position for a very long time, was actually Andrei Vasilevsky. I'm what tournament would that have been? Because he was in the 2013 draft class, so it might have been the 2013 or 2014 tournament. But I remember watching him with the Russian team, and he won that tournament single-handedly. He had some ludicrous save percentage. It was just, he was absolutely unbeatable. His positioning, his reflexes, everything, glove and blocker, you couldn't beat him high. And I just remember going, okay, this guy's going to be a legit NHL force for a very, 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 very long time. And sure enough, he has. And there's other examples too. I mean, I remember watching that same draft class, right? Nathan McKinnon at the World Juniors, Sasha Barkov at the World Juniors, was watching him play in the Stanley Cup Final. Now Seth Jones is at the World Juniors too, with that Team USA that was really trying to ride that defensive core, I remember. I mean, there's just, everybody has gone through that tournament. It's such a big deal tournament. There's anybody it's incredible to watch every year. The passion and everything that's on display. And one thing I like about it, RJ, unlike maybe the Olympics sometimes or the World Championships and stuff, Canada doesn't always win. They've won a little bit recently, but this is the time where a lot of times you can see there isn't just blanket Canada's guaranteed a spot in a gold medal game. And I think that that's a lot of fun too. It's one where you can really see different teams win. You'll see Sweden win, you'll see Finland win, you'll see Russia win, you'll see the US win, you'll see Canada win. Everybody can get in there and get something going. And that's another thing that I really, really like about it, RJ.
Yeah, that makes it really exciting, and especially too when it's hosted in other countries. When Finland hosts, they always seem to have a good team.
Yep.
Sweden, same thing. And I love seeing how excited they get over it. My favorite World Juniors moment was probably Kasperi Kapanen's winning goal in overtime for Finland in the tournament hosted in Finland. I've never seen a host country more excited to win. And throw in Canada too. That's just the peak for me was that game, a crazy game of Finland versus Russia. That's the one that always sticks with me. But to have more memories like that made in Seattle at Climate Pledge, I need that. I need to see that.
Yeah, and for the US too, right? Because it's been a while since I think the US has hosted it, and it's one where USA, the development programs and everything that USA Hockey's been able to do have gotten so much better. I mean, we're going to see several players from that probably picked in the top 10 of this year's draft. We've seen that the last couple of years. See what Team USA could do on U.S. soil would be pretty special too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think Climate Pledge already, what was the record that they set? Most attendance for highest attendance for a women's hockey game in the United States. And that was, the USA versus Canada game. I mean, love to see what they could do for a World Junior, USA versus Canada matchup or any of the USA games. I'm sure it would just be packed for all the Team USA games. Yeah, no, it would be really, really special. It's a phenomenal tournament. Definitely recommend it, and recommend watching it. It's always right around Christmas time. It seems to start like the day after Christmas almost every year, it seems like. But we had a lot of fun. I mean, we remember watching Shane Wright this past one and talking about Shane Wright. I remember bringing in the videos for the Prospect live streams over on Patreon of what Shane Wright was able to do with Team Canada this year. And yeah, I know Team Canada this year was like broken good, but I promise they're not always. There's always hope. There is always hope for sure. And I remember even this year with Canada, there was some hope that teams might take them down, but they were so good again. And seeing how excited they were after, Connor Bedard lifting the trophy, Shane Wright sneaking up behind him. Yes. Gonna go ambush him. It's great. But yeah, and it's one of those where, also with how the Seattle Kraken draft and develop players, RJ, almost guaranteed there will be a Kraken prospect or two in that 26 tournament. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, no, we'll see some good Kraken prospects there as well. I mean, that'd be a good time to see him up close in such a big tournament. You're getting me too excited for this. I know. I want to go cover this tournament right now. We got to wait 3 years. Yep. I know. We gotta wait. We don't have to wait as long though for something else, RJ, and that is the NHL. Is it still the Discover Winter Classic? Yes, it is. Or the Winter Classic. If you look at the logo too, the Discover is very prominent. We're gonna get to the logo here in just a second, RJ. Okay. But yes, at his State of the Union address, RJ, Gary Bettman unveiled the logos and where all the events, the big games for the league are going to take place over the course of this next year, which did give us our first look at the Winter Classic logo for 2024, which will of course be held in Seattle over at T-Mobile. Yes. Yep. Okay. T-Mobile Park. Very good. Yeah. No, I mean it's just not what I remember going to. I just can't remember. I know. Keep track of them at all. So many media members still refer to it under the old name. Well, and it's still like it's T-Mobile Arena for the Golden Knights right now, right? In Vegas, is that still T-Mobile? So it's like all over the place. It's we'll get to that. What does that mean, RJ? As Vegas is the team coming to Seattle to play, does that give them some sort of home ice advantage because they have the corporate sponsor? Interesting. Will they get better wireless service? Will they get better connectivity? I don't know. Well, here's one thing we do know, RJ. We know what the logo is, and we know what everything means because the NHL provided us with this handy reference chart. All right, so I got the logo up on the video version of this podcast. I'm sure everybody's probably seen this by now. You might have even seen the little breakdown that I'm going to talk about, RJ. But I love this breakdown from the NHL. It's clear they put a lot of time and effort into this one, and we're going to get to the things that we want to see at this Winter Classic and stuff here in just a second, but I got to talk about this. All right, so the logo incorporates, RJ, a compass, which serves as the primary holding shape. It's a directional compass with the needle pointing to the Pacific Northwest. So solid. Yep. It's pointing in the right direction. Good. They've gotten that right. By the way, you can find this too if you just go on our Twitter or Instagram. Scroll down a little bit. It's there. We tweeted it when it came out on June 3rd, I believe. So just scroll down that far. You can pull this up yourself if you're just listening to this audio-wise and want to take a look at it. Yep. There's a nautical rope going around it, which visually highlights the city's rich coastal history. So there you go. Yeah, that's solid. Although when I posted this on Instagram too, we had several comments like, "What coastal history? Like, do you know what? Do you know where we are? I know, you know what Seattle's like next sure how to respond to that. Yeah. I like this. I mean, you love this, right? Because you love typography, right? Like that's your jam more than anybody else I know. Custom font features an evolution of the emblematic winter script with a waterline illustration encased within the classic lettering. I mean, do you care to comment on that? It's cool. I won't sound like a typography expert there. Yes, I know, with the winter font. But yeah, the water line within like the classic below it.
Yeah.
You can see a little water line there. And just the subtle things that
Yeah.
provide that extra little bit of depth there.
Yep.
Water. There's some water
I was
down
gonna
below
say,
it too.
I was gonna say, you're getting to the final quadrant that they talk about here, which is water. Representative of the waterfront that surrounds Seattle, the numerous piers have become a unique element of the city's character.
They sure have.
We did it.
Yep, they did it. They nailed it. You know what? They looked around. They realized, yes, we have water.
Yep.
We have a lot of water.
There's piers. There's a coastal history,
piers.
And compasses can help you find it.
They sure can.
Maybe not a compass.
I do like. I mean, they did mention the piers. Look, they know what they're talking about.
Yep.
They have all the piers along the waterfront.
Yep.
All the way up to. I mean, I always like going on my walks or rollerblades past Pier 86, the grain terminal, all the way down through. What is it?
The one everyone thinks about when they think about the piers in Seattle.
That's probably the least famous of all of them, but that's my favorite. You know what? Pier 86 grain terminal and all the ducks that hang out there just trying to get the loose grain. The Pier 86 grain ducks, they're my favorite.
Yep. Where are they in this? They just need to add one of them floating on the water at the bottom.
One of the grain ducks in there. Come on.
Come on. That's what RJ wants. Someone wants to handle that with Photoshop. We'll send it RJ's way. But it's still good. It's fun to have a logo, RJ. It's just another healthy reminder that, hey, this is happening. It's going to be a fantastic thing. Super excited that Seattle gets to host this. I think it's going to be a great game, especially after the way these teams have been playing and everything. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, which got me thinking, what do I want to see from it? And we did kind of talk about this back when it was like originally announced, and we floated some ideas, but I've got a couple more ideas that I kind of want to bring up here. So do you want the kind of slam dunk, I really think this will happen idea first, RJ, or the more like in-depth fun, like, I might need you to kind of guess or help me decide on some elements of it idea
All right,
first.
let's start with the slam dunk one. Let's get that first. Start strong here.
Yep.
What definitely is going to happen?
I think that the Stanley Cup has to be present at the Winter Classic in Seattle to help honor the fact that Seattle was the first U.S.-based city to win the Stanley Cup and educate some of these national fans that act like, Seattle hockey history is just whatever, on that fact. And the fact that Seattle does have a rich hockey history that extends back over 100 years, and that we were the first city to win that Stanley Cup, so that when they jump on us come next postseason or anything, they're not going to just be like, oh, you're just all new to hockey, you don't know anything, blah, 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 blah. It's like, we know a little something. Those of us that are 110 years old remember the Metropolitans winning.
That's right.
There you go.
I'm sure plenty will be at that very game.
And yes. Well, I was going to say, there's going to be more elements of that in just a second. That's part of the secondary thing. But I think the Stanley Cup should be there for that reason. And then I also think, Vegas is in the Cup final. They're up 2-0 right now.
I was going to say, is it going to be complicated or kind of ruin that concept, but everyone will just assume, the Stanley Cup's here because Vegas is the Stanley Cup champions.
That's what I'm worried about, and that's why I think it needs to be encased in some sort of white, red, green Metropolitan something or other. You know what? Get skin it to reskin the Stanley Cup, like Metropolitan sweater.
Well, hang on. The Stanley Cup didn't look like that when the Metropolitans won.
No, it did not. It did not. No, it definitely didn't have the big rings at the bottom. It was still just, I believe it would have been the cup at the top, and then the one bowl under it would have been the one ring kind of set up under it.
Can we make a version of the cup that looks as it would have looked when the Metropolitans won it?
I was going to say, look, the NHL can do that. They have the power to do that. I think the only reason they don't is because of how iconic this look has been. But I do wonder if they could bring a replica version of it or something from
that's
the
whole
time.
Thing. It would be a replica version. You put it
time.
next to the Stanley Cup as it is now.
Yeah.
And you kind of show the progression, especially with, one team, with the Seattle hockey history, and they won this Stanley Cup as it was.
Yep.
Right next to it is the current Stanley Cup that the other team on the ice has just won.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of cool to go side by side.
Yeah, and it would also be cool because for the Winter Classic, do they have a Hockey Hall of Fame kind of traveling component to it? Do you know? Because they will for some league events.
They should.
Yeah, I think they absolutely should. And it would be awesome if, as a part of that, they brought, the part that of the Stanley Cup that they have at the Hall of Fame that has the engraving for the 1917 Seattle Metropolitans. Like, I think that would be cool to bring that part of it. It's not really on a full ring. It wasn't until they like redesigned things in 1948 that all those previous teams were added, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a lot of fun. But in some way, it needs to be there.
When's the last time that section of the cup, though, that had the Metropolitans on it, when was the last time that was actually in Seattle?
Yeah.
Was in Seattle?
Probably.
I mean, they could probably have some story, but this hasn't even been in the city of Seattle since
1919, probably, with the finals that didn't, finish. There was no winner between them and the Canadians because of a pandemic. It probably has not been in Seattle in over 100 years, and I think that would be really cool. So I something along those lines has to happen. Again, yes, if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup, maybe you just don't want the modern iteration of the Stanley Cup, but something like that has to happen, and I do think that it will happen. I don't think that whether it's the NHL or the Kraken organization that they're going to let this big national stage, Winter Classic and what that all means go without talking about that Seattle hockey history. And that's the place you got to start with, right? Like, that is the most important aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And again, we've heard from so many kind of people around the league, fans around the league that just assume that Seattle doesn't have any hockey history just because they got an NHL team this time around, so recently.
Right.
But there's that rich history there. And look, the Kraken have done a really good job of displaying that history and showing people who have, been to Kraken games and seen Kraken games. But look, not every regular season Kraken game is an event that the whole league is watching. So it makes it that much more important to do it here. And I think there's lots of positive things they can do, even that they have already done, but that you might just need to repeat a little bit when the whole country's eyes are on you.
Yep. And so building off of that, RJ, comes my second idea. All right.
Okay.
And this is something I would just like to see, just because I think it would be a lot of fun. And again, it's like, how often does the Winter Classic come out to the West Coast too? Like, right? Like, it doesn't. This is always in Boston, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. It's always in these places like that for weather reasons. We know why. But I want to see players or people or family members from players from earlier from Seattle hockey history there to kind of represent that history. I'd love to see the families of someone from the Metropolitans there, whether it's like a Bernie Morris or Frank Foyston or somebody like that from that original team that competed for Stanley Cups and won, or Pete Muldoon, who, by the way, was 29 years old and 9 months when they won 1917, is still the youngest coach or general manager to have won the Stanley Cup. So maybe a representative Pete Muldoon, somebody there for them. But then all through history, right? All the stuff that we've talked about when talking about like what could a third jersey or a reverse retro look like for the Kraken, or what could they pull from a Winter Classic. You've got the Ironman, you got the totems, you got all sorts of hockey history in there. The other thing that I want, that I think it deserves to be there, and this helps with that argument too of all these people acting like Seattle and the Pacific Northwest doesn't know hockey outside of Vancouver. There's 5 WHL teams that have existed for a very long time now, for the most part, all of them. And, WHL sends more players to the NHL than any other league in the world. Remember that from my scouting days. That was part of the pitch to the parents. So, and it's been a big part of Pacific Northwest hockey for a very, very long time now, in the absence of the NHL and everything. And it does produce a lot of NHL players. And so I would love to see some alumni from each of the 5 Pacific Northwest WHL teams. I know it'd be awesome. I get it, right? One of them's in Oregon, it's Portland, all that stuff. But I think it should be there to celebrate Pacific Northwest, and specifically Pacific Northwest American hockey, I think becomes a big deal here.
And of course, you're not biased at all in including Portland, are you?
Not at all, not at all, not at all. We don't need to get into that. So this is where I want your help, RJ. Who should the alumni representing each of these WHL clubs be? Okay? So for the Seattle Thunderbirds, we'll start with them, right? Start off with the big one there.
Aside from Keegan Colasar potentially playing in that game for Vegas.
Yes, I know, and he doesn't count. That doesn't count. He'll be in the locker room preparing to play a hockey game. He can't be out there for pregame ceremony stuff, right? And you don't want him out there in a Vegas Golden Knights jersey in his pads celebrating Seattle hockey. Like, it just wouldn't work. So Seattle Thunderbirds, RJ, I mean, Patrick Marleau, like this one, it's got to be.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if you can get Patrick Marleau to come out there, for sure, you showcase him big time. I mean, look, the most accomplished NHL player for sure come out at Seattle Thunderbirds. I mean, the all-time games played record holder in the NHL. I think he'd be a huge get, and I think the fans would love to see him, especially those. Look, Seattle has, down in Kent, they've got a great fan base who's been around for a long time, remembers a lot of things, especially with how successful of a season the T-Birds had this year. It'd be awesome to reward those longtime fans who remember watching Patrick Marleau play with him being there at that game.
Yeah. You're also forgetting Shea Theodore is going to be on the Vegas Golden Knights too. So
that's right.
You have 2 Thunderbird representatives there. So
I don't know if we can avoid this.
I know.
Storyline,
I know that's kind of a rough storyline as part of all this, but it gets better from here on out. I promise. So
okay, do the Kraken need to call up Alex True for this game?
Yes. Go for it. Why not?
Just counteract the T-Bird magic on the other side a little bit.
Yep. So the next one is the most I was gonna say difficult to figure out, RJ, in part because the vast majority of their alumni are all current NHL players on other teams, which would make getting them there difficult, and that's the Everett Silvertips. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So because they're the most recent team, I believe, of this group. So Peter Mueller.
Peter Mueller, maybe.
I don't know. Kind of hot.
I mean,
try to get him in from Philly.
Just make sure the Panthers have enough of a break in their schedule that Radko Gudas can come out.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Dustin Wolf, if Calgary's still just not playing him for some reason.
I know, but yeah, we can't count on that. How long can this guy stay in the AHL before he gets called up?
Forever, apparently. Shout out Gilroy, California. Garlic capital of the world. Producer of Dustin Wolf.
Some garlic fries sound good right now.
Yep. So that's the one that I kind of don't know really. Landon Ferraro, maybe?
Maybe
77 NHL games. It's a tough one. I think this is the one where you'd have to really try to somehow get a current NHL player out there for it.
Well, Gudas is a UFA after this season, so maybe just sign him.
Just sign him, the Kraken. You can do it.
There you go.
You can do it.
You have True from the Thunderbirds, Gudas from the Silvertips.
Yep.
Kind of counteract what Vegas has going on.
Yep. So that's that situation. It's like I said, it's the most complicated one. Now for the Tri-City Americans, RJ, which is arguably the most fun one to try to figure out here, okay? Because there's some incredible names that you can go with. Stu Barnes is on there. Scott Gomez, be a fun one. Sheldon Surrey. Olaf Kolzig, maybe. Only the goalie.
I love that.
I really like that one. And of course, Clayton Stoner, just for the Vegas connection, RJ.
Oh yeah, for sure. Remember that? Was that the Shea Theodore?
That was the Shea Theodore move. Yes. They were trying to get the Ducks were trying to get rid of Clayton Stoner, and so they gave him Shea Theodore to take Clayton Stoner's contract off their hands. Absolutely ridiculous. We don't need to focus on it. Morgan Geekie though could represent from the Kraken just straight up.
Oh, there you go. That's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just call up True, I know you have to re-sign him. Sign Radko Gudas as a free agent, and then boom, one,
and then
2,
Morgan
3.
Geekie. All right. So yeah, we're doing this so far. That being said, I do want Olaf Kolzig to be there. I want Ole the goalie. Like that would be a lot of fun, and I believe still a part owner in the team. So that also would be a good reason. Scott Gomez, just good to see him too. Maybe.
Yeah, that'd be fun too if you had Kolzig there. You'd have the 2 best German goalies ever. In the building for that game.
Yep.
With him and Philip Grubauer.
Yep. The only 2 that I think I could name.
Yeah, I mean, there's Thomas Greiss, but we don't talk about him.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about him. All right, so then we got the Spokane Chiefs. Ray Whitney, I guess.
Oh, wait, is Tyler Johnson a free? What's his contract?
I have no idea what.
I'm trying to figure out how you can make this all happen on the Kraken.
Yeah, I mean he's there. Not a lot of current NHLers.
Okay, he's under contract next year at $5 million. That might be a little tough to fit under the cap.
Yeah.
Just for the purposes of this one game.
Yeah, no, this one's tough. I mean, there's some good ones though. I mean, like I said, Ray Whitney's up there.
Oh wait, I know how to make this happen.
You see it?
You ready?
Yep, I'm ready for it. I thought about this too. I think.
Oh, do you think we're going in the same place
I think
here?
so. Yeah, go for it.
Trade for Calder Yamamoto.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I was just
The
looking
Oilers
at that.
looking to get rid of him.
Yeah, that would definitely be a way to do it.
All right, we've solved it.
Yep. So there you go. There's the representative from the Chiefs, and then finally the Winterhawks. RJ. Again, you do just have Bjorkstrand on the roster.
I'll cede the floor to you, Dylan. Here.
I was gonna say you've got Bjorkstrand on the roster. There's Seattle Kraken legend Derek Pouliot. Could bring him back. Need to.
He was fun to have around for a short time.
Yeah, it's fine. But if ESPN wants to be involved at all, you just go, hey Mess, want to come in here? Mark Messier, let's go.
There you go. I mean, that's a good solution.
Gotta be one. Marian Hossa. It'd be fun to see Marian Hossa again. It's been a little while since he's been out and about. Ray Ferraro could just be a good time, I guess, for one reason or another. I just think there's some good options. Cam Neely. Let's talk about someone who hasn't been seen in a while. Famous, great player there. So there's some good options there, but I think if you're sticking with like trying to have current players, Seattle Kraken, Bjorkstrand is the player all the way.
Oh yeah, Bjorkstrand, the instant representative there from Portland.
That's important.
Who knows? We might even see Aiden Hill, depending on where he decides to sign.
Yep, we don't need to keep focusing on the potential Vegas players that might be there, RJ.
Well, hey, he's a free agent. He's going. Kraken just signed him as a third goalie. There you go.
Yep, that'll work. So it's interesting. Oh man, this list is still listing Brandon Dubinsky as an active NHL player. Did he just never file his retirement paperwork 4 years ago when he retired?
He's waiting to face Crosby in another playoff series just one more time.
One last time. But I just think that it would be important to maybe like showcase not just the Seattle hockey history, but also the hockey history of the Pacific Northwest and how responsible that it's been for the development of a lot of amazing NHL players over the course of the years. And I just think that that's something that, again, doesn't get talked about. I don't think it's something that fans of other markets think about, because look, the bottom line is vast majority of markets do not have something like the WHL near them. Right? Like that's just not how this goes. And so they don't even think about it. They don't know that it exists. And I think, again, when you have the national audience paying attention, you have fans from all these other markets paying attention, show off what makes Pacific Northwest American hockey great. And a lot of that is what the WHL, the 5 teams have been able to do here. And again, I'm biased, right? I worked for one of them. I think it's great. I've always been into prospects, all that stuff. But again, the NHL doesn't happen without these development leagues, existing for these players to live out their dream and develop and do all that kind of stuff. And I don't think the NHL does enough to acknowledge that fact all the time. And so I think at a Winter Classic where you are trying to show off the history of the area and there's not a lot of franchise history to go off of, it seems like the perfect time.
Right. There's a deep well of hockey history there in so many ways, like you've highlighted. And I don't think the Kraken come to Seattle or exist at this point without those junior hockey fan bases and kind of laying the groundwork for hockey being as big a thing as it is in this area. And that's something I've really come to appreciate since moving up here. And I just think it's really special, and it absolutely needs to be highlighted at that Winter Classic game.
Yeah. So I think that's something I would do. And, also, I mean, T-Birds, I know they went for it really big this year. Still could have some, okay stuff going next year.
Yeah, you know what? There will be some pieces left over there. They've got some good young players. I'm excited to see what Scott Ratzlaff can do in net too, as I'm sure Milic is going to sign with an NHL team. But they've got some good young players. I mean, heck, they have an Iginla, they have TJ Iginla, so that'll be fun to watch. And not all those guys are going to be playing in the NHL next year. A lot of them will, but not all of them.
Yes.
So that'll be fun. And also, we should shout out the Seattle Thunderbirds too for their great run in the Memorial Cup, getting all the way to the final.
Yep.
And unfortunately, losing the Quebec Remparts. I mean, that Quebec team was just something else.
Yeah.
They deserve a lot of credit for that win, but great season for the T-Birds and just bringing so much excitement to Seattle, to Kent. I mean, watching that whole season progress has been amazing. We haven't had the chance to cover it as much as we would have liked, given a lot of conflicts with Kraken stuff.
Yeah,
I know there's been a lot of that, but to win a WHL championship, I mean, that's something that's just going to live on forever. In Seattle hockey history, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, and we should celebrate them as well.
Definitely. I mean, this year has been so incredible, not just with the Kraken and what they've been able to do, but also the Kraken organization and what Coachella Valley's been doing. We talked about them earlier, but also for the Thunderbirds and what they've been able to do, winning the WHL this year, going to the Memorial Cup final. Like, these are not things that the fact that they're all happening together, right? Like, it's been this incredible season for all of us who care about hockey and who care about the teams in that area and everything. Like, it's so incredible that it's all kind of happened together, and that we've all been able to experience it all together too. Like, that's, again, the big part of it for me. So really, really cool. Those are my ideas for the Winter Classic, though, RJ. Let's make it happen.
All right, yep, make it happen. I have one that I want to add to, and a lot of it because I want feedback from people too, because it's more of a general idea, and I just want some fan help with. Oh, okay. Hi, Afra.
Afra's got thoughts. All right.
Okay, clearly, I haven't even started yet. Okay, Afra. But I think you have to get the Mariners involved, and I know the Kraken will, but taking advantage of the fact that you are hosting this at T-Mobile Park, I mean, that's going to be huge. And look, one thing I've learned in a major way since moving up here, Seattle loves their Mariners. I had no idea just how much before I got up here, because again, I'm more of a hockey guy. I don't really follow baseball all that closely, but man, I sure follow it more closely now, because I mean, you just hear it everywhere. Everyone loves to talk about the Mariners. And so I think you need to find a way to get them involved in this game. Of course, it's going to be in their ballpark. Their season won't be going at this point around New Year's. So they should be free to come join, at least some of the players, if you can. But I'm looking for interesting ideas. I'd love to have some kind of like home run derby or something that you could do. I was brainstorming before this with you a little bit about maybe, from the ice surface, you have players try and shoot the pucks as far as they can, see if they can get them out of the outfield and maybe into the stands somewhere. That might be a little dangerous with pucks flying around. You had a good idea, a 3-member home run derby, like where each team, the Kraken and the Golden Knights, just select 3 people. Maybe you could even do it the day before, a couple days before or something, just to do a home run derby beforehand and just, see what the guys can do. And you just take the volunteers. I'm sure there's like 3 players on each team that would like to do it and test their skill. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, and who wouldn't want to see that, right? Like, it would be absolutely incredible. Like, it would be so much fun to see these guys be able to do that and show off some other sports skills. I mean, baseball is pretty popular amongst hockey players as well. Summertime sport for them, off-season sport and activity for them, that and lacrosse. So I think it would be a lot of fun. And then, talk Gary Bettman into putting a little something on the line, right? Winner of the home run derby gets to start the game off with a power play, something like that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. That
would certainly be unprecedented, but that'd be pretty fun. And you know what? I'd be fine.
Hey everyone, Dylan here. So while we were recording, I experienced a pretty significant power outage. So it interrupted the recording. The podcast was basically done anyway. We were just going to finish up that little bit there and go to the outro. Got power back so I can record this and edit the podcast. However, internet is still not back where I'm at, so unable to get on the conference call with RJ and finish recording with him. So this is the outro to the podcast. Thanks, Queen Anne Beer Hall. So gonna outro the podcast here. Apologies for everything. The rest of the podcast is all still good though. Thankfully, OBS, the recording was not corrupted or anything like that, so we got to keep everything. That was obviously the biggest worry that we both had during all of this. So just want to say thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for all the support. Thanks Queen Anne Beer Hall, and we'll catch you all next week on the deep dive. Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons. Absurdly Sane, Alex, Andrew, Anonymous, Ben, Burnt Creme, Kaylin, Chris, Cody, Connor, Coop, Daryl, Denise, DJ Singletone, Duthin, Eli, Elizabeth, Evan, Habak, Gaby, Gary, Gregory, Jay, Jane, Jeremy, Jessica, Joni, Joseph, Josh, Joshua, Keegan, Kepler, Kitty B. Kraken,
Leanne, Light, Lonnie, Mark, Maya, Michelle, Noah,
Nori,
Nunya, Paige, Paul, Rebecca, Sarah, Scott, C.A. Kraken, Sean B., Sean O., Sergey, Shoeshine, Skeletal Tendency, Steve, Steven, Striatic, Pasty Kobold, Team YMIAT, Tank Commander Ty, Wendy, Strife, and Zane.
thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.